Hi, I'm Margie Abbott, and I've been homeschooling for around 30 years. My oldest son was born and he had a really high IQ, and he forced me into home education really quickly when he was beginning to recognize letters, and by about 1.5 or 2, and read by the time he was 4. And I knew that we were not going to be able to play the regular school game because he was going to need some other things. And in that, we began to consider the idea of homeschooling, even in an era that nobody homeschooled. Now, a little bit about our background. I was raised in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and I went to business college and went into accounting, met my husband in an accounting office, never dreaming I'd do anything but be an accountant. But then when we had this child that had this special education needs, because a very high IQ child has education needs too, we began to toy with the idea of homeschooling. And so even though we had parents that didn't understand, my parents were public school teachers, my sister had convinced my parents that my children would be socially illiterate if we taught them at home. All these battles we had back in that day, we decided to go ahead and do this adventuresome thing and homeschool our children. Now, we're very blessed that in the late 80s, my husband decided to go to Bible college, and we moved to an area in Pennsylvania who had a great need in their education system, and then moved into a county that had about 200 homeschoolers in that county. So I was very blessed early on to meet people who had actually homeschooled 5 or 6 years, and I really feel like they were the forefathers because they had fought the battles of having laws in that state. So through that, I got a good foundation. But I began to realize that we had been using a very standard curriculum for our children. And at that point, we had Child 2. And Child 2 was really out of the box. She was very creative, and she was very much liked to dump all the toys in the middle of the floor and play. And so she needed a different kind of education than our older son did, and we thought, we've got to figure this thing out because workbooks weren't going to work for her as well as they might have worked for the others. So we encountered a unit study approach learning where we did a lot more hands-on things, and we began to realize we could work with other families. So we'd teach us basic math or basic phonics or grammar, and then we would do all these wonderful fun hands-on unit study approaches to learning, and we found out the kids really learned well. So over the next probably 18 to 20 years, we lived in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana. We have had the opportunity to co-op and to lead like tutorials for high schoolers and different things to be able to give our children a different approach to learning. And so over that, you do learn a little bit. So I've been blessed now that I've moved to the state of Tennessee. I get to work with Home Life Academy as a high school counselor, and I get to encourage parents and maybe through some of the things I've learned to be able to help them to make their homeschool experience more easy, and to work through some of their difficult situations, because we ended up having 6 children and every single one of them was homeschooled differently. Each one just needed a little bit of a different flavor to how we handled it. And so lots of times I'm able to help parents to see the gifts in those children that they might overlook, and be able to help educate them in a way that's just not the standard way to do it. And so I'm excited. If there's any way I can help you, I'd love you to reach out to me, and I would be glad to help. Thanks.